Hello everybody and welcome to Giuppy in Arcadia. Today's video was filmed during an excellent tour of the rooms that the serving women worked in at Calke Abbey, a Grade 1 listed country house in Ticknall in Derbyshire, England, which stands on a land where once there was an Augustine priory from the 12th century until it was demolished by King Henry VIII. The house was owned by the Harper Crewe family for almost 300 years. It was originally built in the early 1700s as a Baroque mansion. Based on what you're seeing, one could ask, when is the house going to be restored? Well, that's not going to happen as it hasn't happened for the last 40 years. Due to financial difficulties, the Harper Crewe family wasn't able to sustain the millions of pounds worth of debt duties that the estate faced in the 80s, which made the estate fall into disrepair, and therefore, in 1985, it was passed on to the National Trust, together with a grant from the government to help preservation. The Trust made a unique decision to present and of course preserve the house as a place frozen in time. Debt duties over generations and the decline of the country house in the 20th century meant that the family could no longer afford the upkeeping of the building, and so it fell into a state of decline. Much of the interior was left as it was found, crumbling walls, clotted rooms and peeling paint, which has earned it the nickname of the unstately stately home. The Trust didn't know which point in history to restore the house back to, one of the tour guide explains, and most of the country houses have either been lost or fully restored, so stories like Cork have been lost to history. It's essentially a Georgian house with a Victorian interior and a 20th century story. As you can see from the clips in this video, the family were big hoarders. Every room was stuffed full of objects like toys, textiles, furniture, paintings, and taxidermy animals, insects and birds, which is the largest and most diverse collection owned by the National Trust. 700-acre estate includes a church, a beautiful orangery, several greenhouses, a woodland and deer park, formal gardens, a kitchen garden, and a bird hide area. All of these are open to the public to explore, including the atmospheric interiors of some of the rooms of the house and the kitchen, which transports you back to what life would have looked like when the house was run by the owners. The gardens are curated so beautifully, but in a way that makes everything natural and not too artificial or pretentious. In actual fact, they very well match the vibe of the house, which I think is very nice. During your visit, you can of course enjoy a meal at the restaurant and cafe, and have a wander around the gift shop and the bookshop.
Calke Abbey is indeed one of the most popular National Trust sites in the Midlands, and I think the reason is because it offers a rare and thought-provoking glimpse into the legacy of a once glorious English country home through the story of the decline of the people who lived there.
these are just a few of the many interesting facts about Calke Abbey. I genuinely recommend going for a full experience of this fascinating place. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.